Now, of course, I've been talking about this basically throughout the entire show. We had the police come out after this brutal attack in Chicago and say, oh, the kids were just being stupid. They weren't doing this because it was racially motivated. They were just messing around and being stupid. Well, they are being charged with hate crimes now. But again, it looks like it could be due to mental disability, nothing to do with racial motivation. This white, mentally disabled teen, again, abducted for 2 days, tortured, beaten, humiliated, forced to drink toilet water, racially abused, as it was all live streamed on Facebook. But I mean, Lauren, he's white. He had institutional power. So it can't be racist, right?
Of course not. It's really amazing. We're starting out 2017, as many of us expected it would start out with, once again, proving who the fake news is. They said Donald Trump wouldn't win. Then when he did win, they said that this year would be the year that we would see a huge rise in hate crimes against minorities, and that the Trump camp would be invigorated by his hate speech and supremacy, and just the massive Hitler nation against blacks and Mexicans. But no, what did we see instead? We saw a wave of fake hate crimes, and now to start off 2017, a white disabled man being kidnapped by blacks and being tortured. What are they going to do? What are they going to run with? Well, CNN has gone and said that these are just troubled kids. Even the sheriff has said these are, kids will be kids, boys will be boys. I mean, I remember being a kid, maybe the worst thing I did was stand outside a liquor store and ask someone to buy me booze, but I don't quite remember kidnapping an Asian family and torturing them. This isn't a kids will be kids situation. Who really has the institutional power when they can get away with this and be defended for it? It's unreal.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I don't have many memories as a child because they've kind of faded away now, but I don't remember kidnapping somebody for 2 days, torturing them, forcing them to drink toilet water, cutting chunks out of their scalp, racially abusing them. That doesn't cross my memory. If that is the level for kids will be kids, then we're in big trouble. I mean, what part of the blame do you apportion, not just to Black Lives Matter, we're going to go on to talk about that, but this idea that anti-white racism and it being acceptable to be anti-white is now not only acceptable, but thanks to BuzzFeed, thanks to MTV, it's kind of cute. How much blame do you apportion to that kind of cultural meme?
Right. It's almost it's a cool thing now. When I speak, I just recently tweeted out against Ariana Grande for some ridiculous statement she made, and I got retweeted by a big celebrity, Hasley, and every single reply I got from all these young accounts, 14, 15, 16, was shut up whitey. It didn't matter if these people were any race, even if they were white. They were saying shut up whitey, pasty, mayo, all these things. It's seen as a hip cultural trend. Great job, BuzzFeed. Great job, CNN. You've made it cool to be racist. And we need to get rid of this idea of reverse racism, because you've got some pundits saying, see, reverse racism does exist. Well, no, it's not reverse racism. It's just racism. And we need to accept that. The government needs to accept that. And as much as I'm not really for the idea of hate crimes, I think most crimes like this are all motivated by hate, no matter who it's against, or if it's a white on white, black on black. They're all kind of hateful, but they need to recognize this as being the exact same as 4 white people kidnapping a black guy, saying F black people and beating him up. It's just racism.
And I mean, it is really an echo chamber with this cuteness of anti-white racism, because, people pick it up from BuzzFeed, from MTV. They tweet out things like, oh, Happy New Year, everyone, except white people. Happy Christmas, everyone. Even like, good morning, everyone, except white people. Half the time, it's actually other white people saying it, which is bizarre. But you notice that when you quote their tweet or when you respond to their tweet, mostly within hours or even minutes, they either delete the tweet or claim that you've harassed them merely for quoting the tweet. So I think it still shows that they don't even know that this is unacceptable to engage in flagrant racism. As soon as they step outside the bubble and they actually face some criticism for this, they completely implode. They completely panic, right?
Well, there are a whole generation of people that have grown up on not any sort of political ideology, but rather just the ideology of conformity. You'll notice a lot of these accounts, if people have engaged with them, are all pretty much the same. They all have the little Snapchat flower crown filter. They've got their little gendered pronouns or the dog face, and all of their tweets are not spelt properly, and they're all about lipstick, eyebrows, and tweeting at celebrities, and then suddenly they'll get engaged with politics, and it'll all be screw white people. Where do you think they're learning this? They're learning it from the Kardashians. They're learning it in their classrooms. They're learning it from BuzzFeed. It is totally a cultural thing, and none of it is unique. All of these people are conformists. It's an ideology of conformity. They have no individual personalities, no ability to question and see the nuance in the fact that maybe white privilege doesn't exist when a white guy can be special needs and get beat up and scalped and choked, and they can't see that nuance because it's all a young generation of conformity, and they have conformed to the worst aspects of our culture. And that's what happens when parents say, just let your kids, don't give your kids any ideology, let the culture dictate that. Well, they adopt what the modern culture is, and our modern culture is, quite frankly, cancerous right now.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I was just talking, we'll get onto that, but it's really percolated down into the culture. I don't think you had that as little as 10, 20 years ago. You know, you could fight leftist narratives. You could engage in that political debate on a level playing field where at least you knew you were debating with people who knew how to debate, who knew at least how to spell, as you mentioned. But this has percolated down into the culture, whereas people who normally wouldn't embrace anything political, like they wouldn't, the kind of people who put, you know, Instagram filters on their Twitter photos, they wouldn't even embrace anything political. They wouldn't be interested in it. But now they're getting involved in it. And that toxic combination between extremism and stupidity is exactly what's fostering a lot of this anti-white rhetoric, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And the biggest thing that's happening too is it's being spearheaded by celebrities, and that's why you have all of these videos coming out with celebrities supporting Clinton, celebrities making videos of we need to oppose Donald Trump. A big one just came out recently, because if a celebrity does it, it's cool and people are going to follow it, whether that celebrity has an argument or not. And we need more people. I don't know if you saw Tommy Robinson the other day. He was challenging, oh, what's her name? She's the British singer.
Lily Allen, yeah, we just had him on to talk about it.
He embarrassed her absolutely on social media, and we need more stuff like that. We need more commentators and individuals calling out celebrities, because if you can embarrass them on social media, get retweeted by Lily Allen with counter arguments, these total conformist, just indoctrinated people will actually see there are other arguments. There are people with different ideas out there, and I think Tommy Robinson has done an excellent job of destroying people like Lily Allen and that's just what we're going to have to keep doing when it comes to this anti-white narrative as well. We're seeing bigger figures like Philip DeFranco, H3H3, big YouTubers that are with a lot of normal young generation come out and speak out against BuzzFeed and MTV for their anti-white racism, because we are challenging them over and over and over again until our arguments are too good to deny. And truly, I do believe that will eventually work, but it's going to take a lot of cleansing out these people's indoctrinated minds.
Now, I want to talk about BLM because I've received all these messages over the past 6 hours or so. How dare you connect this to BLM? There's no connection whatsoever. Well, there is a connection. You've had these Black Lives Matter agitators, you've been around them for the past 2 years plus, chanting for dead cops, dead white cops specifically. They've killed black cops as well. Well done. Or at least their message has led to the slaughter of black cops. You know, we've seen them target white people for beatings during the Charlotte riots in the underground parking lot. We've seen BLM supporters, every time a cop is killed on Twitter, they celebrate it. You know, their ideological guru is a cop killing convicted terrorist. You know, they planned to bomb the Ferguson police station. The gunman in Dallas said that he wanted to kill whites. How can the mainstream media who have legitimized this movement, how can anyone claim that Black Lives Matter is a peaceful movement and that their violent anti-white rhetoric doesn't lead to instances like this? There's got to be a connection, right?
Well, I'm getting crapped on a lot for that on Twitter too. They're saying they're making huge listicles with yourself, with people like Glenn Beck and Tommy Loren, saying, look at these people connecting this to Black Lives Matter when it has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. Sound familiar? Nothing to do with the religion of peace, right? They always have these excuses, but
if Dylan Roof kills people in a church, then it's all white people's fault. We'll be back with Lauren Southern after the break. We have these headlines. Chicagoist, the BLM kidnapping hashtag makes a horrific tragedy even worse. Right, so a hashtag is even worse than the kidnapping of a mentally disabled boy. The torture, the 48-hour torture of him. Okay, a hashtag's worst. All right. Gizmodo. Alt-right trolls use Chicago kidnapping to spread lies about Black Lives Matter. So basically they're saying, and the police, the Chicago police, who have come out with some absolutely ridiculous statements, by the way, are now saying, oh, this has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. Do you think for a second, if 4 Trump supporters had kidnapped an 18-year-old disabled black kid for 48 hours, tortured him and racially abused him, that the media would say that had anything whatsoever to do with the alt-right? Well, of course they would. The difference, of course, is that that's not happening. All the hate crimes blamed on Trump supporters are hoaxes faked by leftists. On the flip side, BLM-inspired violence is happening. It's happened over and over again. You had people murdering cops. In Dallas, he directly said he wanted to kill white people. They plotted to bomb the Ferguson police station. Ishmael Brinsley, the killer in New York, said he shot 2 cops in the head as a Black Lives Matter revenge attack. Documented examples of this anti-white racial narrative that's been created by Black Lives Matter, supported by the media, and it leads to situations like this. Yes, there's an obvious connection. Black Lives Matter is not a group. It doesn't have a headquarters. It's an ideology. Ideologies lead to actions. It's an extremist ideology. It's a racist ideology, and it's leading to racist attacks against white people. No matter how many headlines you put up, being outraged about my tweets about that, that is a fact. Lauren Southern, do you see a connection between BLM and this latest incident in Chicago?
Right. So the narrative is the alt-right, right-wingers are trying to smear Black Lives Matter by connecting them to this incident. No one's trying to smear Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter smeared themselves. We're connecting the two because we're seeing identical behavior, and definitions change. Whether people like it or not, the definition of what Black Lives Matter is as a movement has changed because of its actions. A lot of people will say, if I tell a woman who is acting sexist towards a man that she's acting feminist, people will be outraged. But quite frankly, that's what act like now. So I'm in a connection. Same thing, BLM kidnapping. People maybe need to start asking questions of what has Black Lives Matter done to be compared to this rather than what has the right done.
I mean, even the shooting of the TV reporter, you remember that? I think it was back in late 2015, early 2016, Bryce Williams. He gunned down that TV reporter live on air. He said that that was part of an agenda to inflame a race war. You know, again, we had Ishmael Brinsley. He said it was a Black Lives Matter revenge attack. We had demonstrators chanting for, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it now? Oh, what did they get? Dead cops. Direct correlation between their ideology and violence. So yes, we're obviously going to make the connection if they're screaming in his face, F white people, F Donald Trump, the narrative, the rhetoric that's directly associated with Black Lives Matter over and over again, whose ideological guru, whose inspiration is a convicted cop-killing terrorist, by the way, Assata Shakur. So we're going to make the connection no matter how offended you get about our tweets. We'll be back live on The Alex Jones Show with Lauren Southern. Don't go away. We're live with Lauren Southern of the Rebel.media. We're going to tell you how you can get her book coming up, Barbarians, How Baby Boomers, Immigrants and Islam Screwed My Generation. But just rounding off with this BLM issue, of course, the kidnapping, torture of an 18-year-old white kid there in Chicago. The leftist media more offended over my tweets than the actual 48-hour torture and abuse of a mentally incapacitated young man. Lauren, we've seen this rash of fake hate crimes by leftists, Islamists, BLM supporters. Do you think they're, hoaxing these hate crimes just to try and demonize Trump supporters? Or is this some kind of weird new form of virtue signaling that we're seeing here?
I'm sure it's a bit of both. I mean, you got to think these leftists, they love it. They love their narratives. And in fact, they probably think it's moral too. And that's the most interesting part. They say it's to raise awareness whenever a hate crime that has been falsified is found out and exposed. And they think it is totally moral as long as you are taking down people like Trump. But what they don't realize is that along with taking down people like Trump and making him look bad, they're taking down the truth, and they're taking down honesty and all these good and decent things that make discourse, political discourse in our society, function properly. We can't solve race issues in America. They are being lied about and exaggerated on one end and totally misrepresented because of these people that are obsessed with virtue signaling and obsessed with their narrative. And quite frankly, they're going to lose if they continue this narrative because people are being exposed to the truth.
Now let's move on to a slightly different issue. Same group of deranged morons, but you posted this thing, I think it's from Tumblr. You posted this a couple of days ago up on Twitter. Clover gender. Someone claiming their identity remains stuck at the mental age of a 13-year-old, according to this post. So that gives them the justification to embrace their sexual attraction to children. I mean, that's what I got out of it. Before you came on, we talked about a new Fox entertainment show where they had a 6-year-old boy who is transgender with a sadomasochistic ball gag in his mouth talking about his vagina. We've got Clover gender, whatever the hell that is. Why is the left attempting to normalize pedophilia? We see this again and again. Todd Nickerson, Salon.com, Cracked, talking about child porn. Why are they trying to normalize pedophilia?
Right. Well, Clover gender, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it were real when you have people identifying as 6-year-olds and whatnot. That one may have specifically been a troll, but it does expose what the logical conclusion of a lot of leftist ideology is. And you know what's funny is that a lot of SOCONs, despite how ridiculed they are, they tend to be, they've been right about a lot of things. They said after gay marriage was normalized, then you'd get transgenderism normalized. And then after transgenderism, you have pedophilia normalized. What do you know? It's kind of happening order quite a bit. And we've got a society that they get bored. They have normal sex and they get bored of that. So they need something more interesting and more interesting. And the porn gets more and more messed up. The sexual lives and fantasies of celebrities that are exposed on TV get more and more messed up. And our whole culture, instead of being about morals, decency, moderation, being a person that has willpower to behave properly, it's just become about more. It's addicted to hedonism, and this is the logical conclusion of that hedonism. It's extremely messed up and based entirely on what I want now and not what is moral.
And again, this really started back in the late 60s, where you had the foundation of sexual theology, the people who kind of became the authorities on human sexual behavior. I talked about it earlier, Alfred Kinsey, people like that. They were actually complete perverts. It's like going to Freud for all your psychology information. He was a complete nutcase, crack addict. Alfred Kinsey was a complete pervert, did horrific experiments on children, again, to try and prove something that wasn't true, that basically we're all completely perverted, we're all into this, and again, to legitimize pedophilia, and that's why you see it in the shows now. So you go back to the very foundation of sexual theology after the sexual liberation of the 60s, and it was perverts laying down the law of what was normal, when what's normal to them is very different from what's normal to the rest of us.
Yeah, and people need to start having conversations about this again. I know it's kind of become a untouchable subject. You'll be branded as the pastor from Footloose if you try to talk about sexuality or sexual freedom at all, and talk about maybe the fact that it has some problems, and maybe the fact that we should talk about some limits on it because it can get pretty messed up. I mean, I was tweeting Ariana Grande the other day, who, as many people know, she twerks on a stage and sings about sex for a living, and she was talking about how she was infuriated about being objectified. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't run around in no clothing and also be respected as if you're dressed like a congresswoman. You can't have all of this sexual liberation and all of this hedonistic society and not have it lead to some of these really gross, messed up things in society. You can't have no moral standards, and you basically you can't have all of these this double think. Maybe it exists in the classrooms of gender studies teachers, but it doesn't exist in reality. And we really need to have an honest discussion about the sexualization in our culture and in media, and especially towards children, which I don't understand why, but is becoming, well, I guess I do understand why to an extent, but it's becoming so prevalent. I mean, among politicians, I'm hearing about it more and more, and it's extremely disturbing, and we need to have an honest conversation about it.
I mean, people were predicting 30, 40 years ago that the last barrier would be the normalization of pedophilia. And now we see it. We see it with Salon.com, Todd Nickerson giving all those pedophiles a platform. It's really starting to happen, and it's absolutely chilling. Let's talk about feminism, though. We got about 5 minutes left. You know, you came on the scene with your strident opposition to feminism. I think it's fair to say that over the past, year or so, you know, this third wave modern feminism movement seems to have lost quite a bit of its confidence in the face of somebody, some opposition figures actually having an argument against it. It's kind of morphed into other facets of social justice derangement. Do you think we've actually had a quantifiable victory, you know, in transforming the word feminist into a pejorative term? Because I don't really see a lot of the strident feminism stuff that we saw back in, you know, late 2014 throughout 2015 when you came on the scene. Do you think we really had a big victory against third wave feminism in discrediting it amongst young women?
I absolutely do. However, I think it's been mostly among the politically educated class that we've had an influence with. I rarely see political YouTubers, left-wing or right-wing, supporting feminism anymore. And when it comes to the politically engaged community online, it's really, you're hard-pressed to find feminists anymore. However, I do feel like I might be in my little bubble of politically aware people sometimes, because as soon as you engage the wider world, the celebrity-obsessed, drama-obsessed, makeup-obsessed, Kardashians-obsessed world, a lot of them are still just there to regurgitate the talking points of those celebrities. So as long as those celebrities are owned by Marxists, as long as they're paid by Marxists and leftists, you will still see feminism having a large influence on the popular, not so much politically engaged culture that are just there to vote for politicians because of their hair, to back up immigration because it's trendy, to love feminism and tout feminism because Katy Perry said so, or whichever celebrity it is during that week.
And of course, the way they control this paradigm is the very few celebrities who dare step outside the box, who, by the way, some of whom message me privately on a regular basis and say, I completely agree with you, but I can't say anything publicly because it would ruin my career in 5 minutes. Many big people who private message me saying that, who we'd like to get on as guests, but they don't want to do it because they know the left is completely intolerant of other people's opinions and will crucify them. As soon as any of them, and it's rare when it happens, step outside of their comfort zone and actually criticize feminism, God forbid, they are absolutely savaged. The most rampant misogyny amongst the left is reserved for women who critique third wave feminism, right?
Yeah, well, I think the actress, was it Kaylee? I can't remember her last name, but she's from Big Bang Theory. And she said something about not being a feminist, and she was just ravaged by the media. And that's exactly how it works. You step out of line, your career is over. And it's hard to blame some of these people. I get you've got work to do, you've got a job, this is your entire life. But at the same time, what is really important? Is this culture war important to you? Is the future of the West important to you? Or is your career important? And unfortunately, I think for a lot of celebrities, they're going to pick their career and their own life and Instagram popularity over the culture war. Luckily, there are a lot of us fighting in the culture war, like yourself, InfoWars, Rebel Media, Breitbart, and all the rest. And I think we're going to have to maybe change our strategy a little bit to have a proper influence. You have YouTubers like Blair White who are kind of taking on the whole snap Beyonce attitude to entice younger generations into more logical political discussion, but with a little bit of the flair of mainstream makeup and attitude. So we might have to change our tactics, but it's going to be a tough culture war against this.
I'm seeing some signs of encouragement. I'm seeing more people, a lot of younger people, teenagers and so forth, coming out and saying, you know, I'm just sick of it. I'm just going to come out and say what I want to say. I don't care anymore. I'm seeing people grow balls on a more regular basis, and I think that can only be positive for encouraging more dialogue and actual diversity of opinion, which the left hates. But finally, you've got a new book out, Barbarians. Sounds very ominous. How baby boomers, immigrants, and Islam screwed my generation. What motivated you to write this book, and what subjects does it cover?
Well, the whole idea of the book is to talk about youth and millennials and the kind of dispossession of the Western soul, and a lot of the questions that young people have that are leading them to become alt-right, that are leading them to become identitarians, nationalists, all these things. It's because they're not having their questions answered, and these groups are not going to go away until they have these questions answered. Can society live in a multicultural world? Does multiculturalism work? Can we have such massive immigration? How are we going to fix race relations? Was it such a good idea to give up some of these older traditions we have? And I talk about the people who have suppressed the answers to these questions and have tried to silence this generation. And quite frankly, it's just a book that's trying to address a lot of the lost millennials that are searching in the dark for meaning, purpose, and a political ideology, because right now the mainstream media certainly are not giving them the answers they're looking for.
Now, how are the reviews going on Amazon? Because I know a tactic of the intolerant left is to go and flood and sabotage the reviews. Have you managed to fend off that mode of attack?
Right. Well, right now it's looking pretty good. Luckily, all of the reviews that are purchased reviews, the people who have actually gone and read the book, are extremely positive, 4 or 5 stars. It's the reviews that haven't bought the book that I'm finding it's 1 star and just the sentence is, "This is racist," below it. I think they just read the title. But I thought we told people not to judge books by the cover. Apparently leftists didn't get the memo, but luckily I'm doing pretty good on reviews at the moment. Thank you to my lovely followers and readers.
Okay, just in closing, tell people, obviously they can get the book on Amazon.com. Is there a Kindle version? Is there going to be an audio book?
Yes, you can pick up the Kindle version on the same Amazon page, and you can go to barbariansbook.com to find both of those. And I will be making an audiobook. I'll get around to that eventually. It's been a busy new year so far, but stay tuned and follow me on Twitter at Warren_Southern to see when that comes around.
Okay, we'll leave it there for now. We'll be sure to have you back on the show. There goes Lauren Southern. Thanks for joining us, Lauren.